Before we get into today's episode, just to remind everyone, if you've been listening to the Podiatry Legends podcast for some time now and you've been enjoying it, please consider leaving a rating review if you haven't done so already. It really does help the show out, and it also lets the podcast platforms know that they should be recommending this show to other people. So if you haven't done it before, please leave a rating review. I would really, really appreciate it. Okay, let's get on to today's episode. Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends Podcast. Podcast is designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is Mark McGill. Now, this is an interesting story. I'm going to share a little bit of a background here. On Saturday, the 14th of June, we went to this event in Cairns, which is one of the world's best kept secrets, called the Cairns Wine Awards. It's $40 to $45, 3 hours of as many wines as you can drink and taste, including food. It's great. So if you ever get the chance to be in Cairns this time of year, that's when you need to do it. Now, while we were there, Mark McGill had some of his wines from his winery. So we were tasting them and we got talking. But then all of a sudden, I realized that Mark doesn't just have wineries. Mark also has some accommodation places at his vineyards that you can stay at. Then he goes on to tell us he also has this very successful real estate agency on the Sunshine Coast. And I'm going, my God, I'm so impressed with what he was doing. So I thought there's going to be a story in here somewhere that I think is going to be inspiring. It's going to motivate everybody. And to know that Mark is a go-getter, like I said, we spoke on Saturday, the 14th of June. Today is Wednesday, the 18th of June. So I send out invites to different people. Sometimes it takes them a few weeks to get back to me. Sometimes they take months to actually find a time. Mark booked in within 48 hours. So, Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Very much for the introduction. And this should be pretty exciting because we've only chat over a wine and I don't think you even know my story yet. So it's going to be a fun and a fantastic tale of discovery, I think, today.
I think what was interesting is I had a few wines when I started talking to you, but the conversation just flowed. But what I found interesting was, well, what I said, there was a comment I said to you and you laughed. And I said, you're never going to die wondering because you have an idea and then you just do it. And have you always been that way?
Yeah, literally since I was a kid, actually. I bought my first property at 19. I don't know how I got the loan. I just went in and signed the contract and did it. And just everything, I guess you make everything happen to make it fall into place. So sometimes it's fun. I've always made decisions first. And then, somehow I feel that you just pull your surroundings around you to make your decisions happen. Instead of, I see, especially in my job in real estate, I see too many people procrastinate and never make it.
Okay. So when you were 19 and you decided you're going to buy your first property, what work were you doing at the time?
I was office administrator doing part-time work at an accounting and studying at university. I did not even have a full-time job. A bit of money saved up from during high school, like I worked as a soccer referee. So I used to get cash for refereeing games of soccer. So I had money stashed away saved from that. Had enough for deposit. Fortunately, back then a one-bedroom unit on the Sunshine Coast was only about $70,000. So I'd amassed enough money for a deposit. I had a credit card, and somehow back in those days, the bank manager had the capacity to make a decision on whether you're a good person or not.
I know, isn't that funny?
Give it a go.
So at the time when you made that decision to do that, did you have people in your life saying, Mark, you're doing the wrong thing. You're too young to be buying an apartment. You don't have a job. Were they giving you all the reasons why you shouldn't have gotten to real estate?
Yep, absolutely. So my parents, first thing they did is panic and go, you can't afford a property. Like, you're going to put yourself under stress. How are you going to make the... So I'm like, well, look, I was going to make the repayments. I know what I need. This is where I can cut back. These are the sacrifices I can make. And here's some opportunity where I can make some additional income. So I did it. It worked. And I don't really know how it all happened, but it just came together and I've never missed a beat since.
Okay, so there's a big lesson there for everybody is don't listen to the people that say they can't do it. Did you talk to anybody else who said, no, Mark, this is a good idea, you should do it? Did you take any advice from anyone?
And also, my parents had investment properties at the time, so I was modelling what they were doing. I think they were just coming out of a period of protection and caution because they are naturally conservative people. I've always been the black sheep in my family where I'm probably a little bit more appetite for adventure. So I would just, back at the time, Mum and Dad had an investment property at the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah.
And as a teenager, going up there and staying there all the time. So I figured, well, this is cool, but I'd like one for myself. So I just can't keep having Mum and Dad apartment all the time. So I walked to the local real estate agent around the corner there. I asked them what was around and what it would cost to get like a little one bedroom, just something to get started. And back in those days, there was no realestate.com. It was the days where the real estate agent would chuck you in a car and take you around. And he showed me 3 properties, and I went back and bought the first one.
Out of curiosity, do you still have that property today?
I actually sold that property a couple of years ago, but that was a stepping stone. So, like I said, it was a little one-bedroom property. Back then, the market, this was like the John Howard years, so 2004, market went nuts. So suddenly I was a 24-year-old kid with 200 grand in my bank account while all my friends were still doing part-time university jobs. So that allowed me to go out and buy a nice wakeboard boat. I guess I made the sacrifices in my younger 20s, but made up for it being the only one of my friends with a speedboat in their mid-20s and a nice car. And, yeah.
I think it's interesting because I've had this conversation with a lot of people that I didn't do much travel when I was younger. So I finished high school, worked at a chook farm, went to university, did podiatry, started working as soon as I can because I was just so eager to start actually making a life for myself that I didn't go overseas and do the 3-month backpacking tours. I didn't actually do much travel, hardly any, until I was a lot older, probably in my 30s. But that set me up really well that then in my 30s and my 40s and my 50s now that, I have a lot more options because I gave up a lot in my younger years when others were not, I'm not saying I didn't party. I did partied pretty hard, but I didn't spend massive amounts of money going on trips and getting myself into debt on credit cards to buy things that I didn't actually need.
I guess I've always taken the approach of buy something sensible and then buy something stupid. So I've always done something sensible and then a reward the next purchase. So I bought a property, then I bought a boat, bought another property. I've bought like sports cars. I've done the overseas holidays. I bought a vineyard on impulse.
Yeah.
So I've always tried to make sure that I've never felt like sacrificing along the way. I've still treated myself and still rewarded my hard efforts along the way. And nowadays, I guess there's probably a blend of both where I try and I'll probably try and make it both a combination of sensible and reward.
That's a good motto though, is do something that's sensible and then do something that's a little bit not sensible. Well, it's not, I wouldn't say stupid. It must admit, like, even though I didn't do a lot, I still did a lot of things and I still bought myself things that I wanted and had a lot of great weekend getaways, just didn't spend a lot of money going overseas or getting into debt. That was my thing.
So, like, part of my background you probably didn't know, I'm actually a registered architect by profession.
Oh, is that what you did at uni?
That's what I did at university. So I was an architect for 15 years before I jumped into real estate. So traveling overseas and doing the European thing and seeing all those buildings was actually a big goal of mine. But I'm still glad that I actually didn't get my first passport stamp until I was 30.
Yeah.
But, geez, I made up for it because in the last 10 years, I've probably been to about 45, 50 different countries. And every country I've been to, I've been able to really live the experience. And yes, it probably would have been great to experience in my 20s, but I probably would have done it with hangovers and probably missed a lot of the experience. Whereas in my 30s, I was probably a little bit more mature to enjoy and appreciate some of the history and some of the architecture. And also I had the money to be able to do things like I remember my first visit to New York, on my bucket list, the first thing I wanted to do was fly over in a helicopter. And so literally I got off the plane, went into town, checked into my hotel, walked straight to the helipads right down the bottom of the financial district and flew over New York in a helicopter. Now, that's something I would have done as a university student.
No, out of curiosity, had you booked that ahead or did you just take a punt and walk down there and said, I'm going to jump in someone's helicopter?
I walked down there and booked it on the spot.
That's what you seem to be the type that just go, this is what I'm going to do. So that, but I don't need to book it because it will just happen.
I don't think you can actually ever plan a good time. You think of the
Yeah,
best adventures you've ever had or the best nights you've ever had. Nothing was planned. It was all spontaneous and random. And I think that adds to the experience.
definitely.
I was in France and I was traveling on my own. It was actually a funny story because I was actually meant to be in Sweden and I had a trip cancelled because of the weather. So I wasn't even meant to be in France. My travel agent had put me there because she said, well, Mark, you like wine. You should go to Bordeaux because you've never been there before. I can have you there in an hour. So I said, yep, sounds good. Send me from Switzerland to Paris. And anyway, I'm in Bordeaux and I'm dining at a table on my own. And the wine that I've got, literally translated, the bottle said doggy style on it in English.
Yeah.
And in French, it was like dog wine or something, or wine of the dogs or something like that. But when you chucked it on Google Translate, it said doggy style. So the funny Frenchman on the table next to me thought that was pretty funny and decided to let me know. So I got the waiter to bring a bottle of the doggy style wine and bought everyone on that table a bottle of wine that had doggy style on the front of it. They found it funny, invited me on their table. We get chatting, and the guy that was on that table actually works for Chateau Lafite Rothschild. So
Okay.
any of your listeners on here who are wine people, like that is the holy grail of wines. Money cannot buy your way into that vineyard. And by pure fluke, I'm at a table with this guy who could get me in. We've remained very good friends. I flew back to France 6 months later and had a private tour drinking $10,000 bottles of wine in the barrel room of Lafite Rothschild, which is just, like I said, it's the holy grail of wine experiences. And that happened from a complete unplanned experience where I wasn't even meant to be there at the time.
Yeah, it's funny. I have to agree. I do think some of our best experiences, they're not planned. When you try and plan them to be great, sometimes they are good. They're great experiences. Like the Cairns Wine Awards, always a good afternoon.
Yeah.
But we've done the same thing. My wife and I, we went down to Melbourne. We were going down for a bit of a trip, and we were going to go to one of the rugby league games there. And I said, well, instead of just going and get the normal tickets, why don't we get tickets into the Jim Beam tent? They're like $350 a ticket. My wife went, yeah, okay. So we end up doing that. And I don't know if you know who Robbie Kearns is, but he's a retired Melbourne football player, played for Australia, was a bit of a legend down in Melbourne. All of a sudden, we're in the tent there, we're chatting away to him. Who would have thought 11 o'clock that night, we're zipping around in the car with him, and we're going to these different places. And I'm saying to my wife, I go, if anyone had told me we would be with Robbie Kearns tonight, I wouldn't have believed it. Now, that's nowhere near close to the story that you told, but it's one of those nights where it's a memorable night, totally unplanned.
I mean, using our current experience, the Cairns Wine Awards, I only found out about that on Instagram about 6 weeks ago. So I was a
Yeah.
last minute entry. And they said, well, would you like to come up? I said, of course I would. I'd love a trip to Cairns. I haven't been to Cairns for almost 15 years. So, yeah, booked a flight the next week, came on up, and next minute, meet a couple of great people. And here we are doing a
On the
podcast.
podcast. On one of the world's greatest podcasts. Who would have thought that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you just never know where this could end up. Like you could have listeners that want to buy a property on the Sunshine Coast or sell a property on the Sunshine Coast. Or maybe they just want a good wine. Or maybe I'll bugger my foot and I need a foot fixed.
Yeah, you need a podiatrist on the Sunshine Coast. So we'll point out, you do have a real estate agency on the Sunshine Coast, and it's McGill Group.
Yeah, so it's the McGill Group. So we're real estate agents. So obviously we do sales, but we also do property management. We do holiday management. And then we have a handyman maintenance business and we have a cleaning business as well. So, and a lot of those businesses have actually evolved out of the combination of making things easier for my existing staff to increase staff retention and also just to make our jobs easier and just more efficient. Because in the property management field, everyone knows there's a bit of a rental crisis at the moment and tenants are getting, there's like things are just not happening quickly for a lot of tenants and like they can't get maintenance and everything just is taking longer. And we were having a hard time getting tradespeople. So we thought, well, let's put on our own maintenance division. That way we don't have to chase up tradespeople. The tenants get stuff fixed quicker. My clients who own the properties get stuff fixed quicker and cheaper. And my staff are saving about 4 hours a day in follow-ups because now we can just look at the calendar and book our guy straight away. So now that it's all in-house, it's opened up a lot more opportunity for us, and then it's freed up my staff. They're not as stressed, so they're working less, so we're getting more productivity, which is allowing us to then take on more business and handle more clients.
Yeah, it's surprising. I think there's a lot of businesses that they could bring things in-house, and once they streamline it, can save them a lot of time and a lot of money. We did the same in our podiatry clinic. We would used to send away to get our orthotics made, but then we realized how much we were spending in lab fees, and then the time we were waiting sometimes to get them back. We thought, well, what's it going to cost to set up our own milling machine and everything on site? We had the room to do it, so we set it all up. We ended up saving $100,000 a year in lab fees. We could get them done the same day if we really wanted to, next day at the latest. So I think everybody needs to sometimes look at different things they're doing or services and go, is that something we can actually look after ourselves or create a better system to make it work?
Well, the real estate industry especially is notorious for outsourcing. We outsource everything. And there is definitely some benefits to outsourcing because obviously, like, not everyone can afford the infrastructure of buying the equipment, etc.
Yeah.
I don't know what your machine would have cost, and for us, it wasn't even a profit-driven decision to put handyman and cleaners on. It was just being able to deliver effective business to our customers in a timely fashion and not stress out our staff. Because I could see that was becoming a choke point for my staff. And for me, staff retention is huge. Like most of my staff have been with me. Look, we're businesses 5 years old, but most of my staff have known me or worked with me for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
So, and out of that staff, like our staff turnover might be one or two people a year. And most of the time it's with maternity leave. And then they come back afterwards.
Yeah, and I think that's also an important part of it. It's not always introducing something just to make more money. If it's a better service for your clients or your customers, we had this similar thing where if patients came in, they brought in the footwear while they were having their treatment, they could get the shoes clean, we didn't charge them anything for it. And patients just thought, that's absolutely fantastic.
And good delivery of service then helps you bring more business as well and retain more business. So for us in the real estate world, my best customers are the ones that have used me a couple of times before.
Yeah.
I don't have to re-pitch to them. I don't have to tell them why they should do certain marketing or whatever. They literally ring me up and say, Mark, it's time to sell. Here's the keys. Let me know when it's done. Whereas a new customer, I usually have to spend double the amount of time explaining everything to them, setting them up. I have to convince them why they need to do certain things. They usually have price shopped you amongst 3 or 4 other agents, and you've got to be a bit more competitive on fees, whereas we work in reverse. We actually have a higher price for new customers, and then my repeat clients get the discount. Because I think it's crazy that your loyal clients are the ones that will actually pay you the most, and they're the ones that are least likely to get the benefit of it.
Yeah.
Which is a common criticism of banks.
Yeah, and that's the funny part. We have the same thing with patients where you'll have certain patients that come back on a regular basis, or they may have had orthotics made and they come back to get additional pairs. And when you look after those people, they keep coming back. They also bring their friends, their family, their work colleagues. They talk about you. They become raving fans of your business the longer they're with you. And that's why I'm always surprised when I understand you need to always have new customers, patients on our thing coming in, but you really need to be looking after the ones you've already got.
They love the one you're with. That was it's a very common saying from one of my real estate trainers. It's definitely something I keep in mind with everything, like with staff retention, with business, with clients. Like, I always try and put my focus on the clients that I have first. And whenever I'm quiet on business, it's funny, but like I can literally ring up all my existing clients and go, you know what, let's have a thank you for our existing clients night and book out a movie cinema or put on a wine night. If I book out a restaurant and put on food and drinks for my top 50 clients, I can guarantee that will deliver me much more business and much better quality business than running 2 months worth of TV and radio ads.
Oh, I have no doubt. On my other podcast, I used to had a chiropractor on there, Dr. Zano, and he was also Mr. Universe in
Oh, wow.
2016 or something. He was a big bugger too. Great guy, just fantastic guy. But he said that he used to do the same. He spent all this money on marketing, but then eventually he used to put on dinners and he would just invite some existing referrers and he'd invite some new ones on. And he'd get up there and just do a talk for 10 minutes and just tell everyone why he loved being a chiropractor. Wasn't trying to sell him anything. He said, I just want you to know who I am and why I do what I do. And he'd sit down. And he reckons he got more business from that than anything else that he actually did, just having that personal connection with people.
Absolutely. So that's why we make it a point to try and do that every 6 months. So we just try and repeat those events every 6 months. We have something where we have an opportunity to get in front of and back in touch with our existing client base. Because it's very easy to forget them and chase the new thing and chase the new business, but we can spend a fortune on marketing and ads and TV commercials, or you can spend a couple of bucks just thanking the ones who have supported you on your whole journey. And that's applicable to nearly every business. It's not a real estate thing. It's not a architecture thing. Wineries do it incredibly well. Some of the best wineries, they have a loyal members program where people repeat buy their wines, and some of the best wineries sell out their wines to their existing client base before they even release them.
It's like that. Have you tried that Rockford Black Shiraz?
Yep. So Rockford is a very good example. They're like,
oh my God.
That's Rockford just over the hill there.
So we were in Barossa so many years ago, and then someone said, you've got to try this. We were at a restaurant in the Barossa, and the restaurant had one bottle of the Rockford Black Shiraz left. So we ordered it, and this is going back 16, 17 years ago. It was like $120 for the bottle.
At least, yep.
We had it, and we always went, oh my God. So we went to the winery the next day, and they said, oh, we want to get some. And they just laughed at us. They said, it is sold before it's...
Yep.
And I ended up getting 4 bottles. 3 years later, I got 4 bottles of it.
So they have the ultimate repeat client program. So you have to be a stonewaller, which I'm fortunate enough I am a stonewaller.
Yeah.
So I can buy that wine, but I'm only limited to 3 bottles of it. And if I don't buy it when it's first released, it's sold out. And to get on that stonewallers list, I had to buy their wines for almost 10 years before being able to just be on the list to be able to buy their wine.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. That is really smart.
But this is where they also look after their customers. And another famous winery is the Tyrrell's family. Tyrrell's wines do a very similar thing. And their wines are, so Rockford wines, they're very hard to get, but they reward their loyal customers by not pumping the prices up. Now, there are people who are on those wine lists, and they buy the Black Shiraz, and then 2 weeks later you see it on the Facebook marketplaces for double the price.
Yeah.
And people will pay them. And Rockford could charge that price and people probably would pay it, but they don't. They reward their loyal members by keeping their prices at a fair rate and keeping that scarcity. But as a result, like they can pretty much forecast their sales every year. They know that they've got X number of bottles of wine committed to every year before they even harvest.
Yeah, see, I just think that's great because I get annoyed when I used to have Fox Sport, and I was paying, say, for example, I was paying $80 a month. It wasn't a huge amount. But then they had this ad on TV and said, hey, if you want to join Fox Sport, it's only $40 a month for the first 12 months. And you have the big special on. I've been with you guys for 10 years. I'm paying $80 a month. So I contacted them and I said, hey, I just saw this ad for $40 a month. If you're a new customer, I said, can I get that deal? And they went, no, that's only for new customers. And I went, but I've been with you for 10 years. Yeah. And they went, sorry, it's only for new customers. I said, oh, well, can you cancel my subscription? And then, well, what do you mean? I said, I want to cancel my subscription. And they said, well, you can't cancel and then rejoin as a new customer because you've been an existing customer. And I said, oh, no, just cancel it. And I said, stick it up your bum. I got the shits. And they went and got the manager and I said, I'm sorry, but I'm now annoyed and I cancelled it And I must admit, I did sook and complain for a long while after that. But I stood my ground.
It's so true. Like, as an existing customer, you don't feel any value at all.
Yeah.
If the business does that to you.
Whereas if you've ever dealt with Lexus, Lexus looks after you.
Yep. Yep. And I've had similar experiences. My cars have always been Jaguars. Like,
Yeah.
the same sort of thing. They'd look after me. They'd roll me out to functions. I'd get invites to track days. They even, that trip I was telling you about that got cancelled in Sweden, like,
Yeah.
I got an experience with Jaguar where I went to Sweden and we went on a frozen ice lake and they just gave us the keys to a sports car and said, have fun.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, it was the most fun you can have in a car for sure. It was a good time. But unfortunately, that second time I went, it was too warm and the ice flakes were starting to melt. So we weren't allowed to drive on them after that.
But one thing I was going to say too, like everything you're talking about your business and how you look after your team, you look after your existing customers. I assume that is why you've won multiple real estate awards as well.
I'm sure it's factored into it. So I've won REIQ Salesperson of the Year twice, and I've been a finalist. I've been in the top 10 every year for the last decade. My business won the REIQ Salesperson, a small agency of the year. So we won that in our second year of business. That was actually a really big milestone for us because it's one thing to win the agency, but to actually build a team and run a business and just in our second year be recognised as the top in the state was pretty huge accolade, especially when you see some of the established businesses we're up against.
Yeah.
But I think, like I said, the core value of all of our businesses, most of my staff are actually working mums. And it's funny because there's so much talent in that team that were never touched and never hired by other agencies because they're mums. They couldn't structure a business that could work around their timeframes. We can do everything remotely. I'm sitting here feeling real estate calls, sitting in a vineyard. Like I can still do contract on the other side of the country. I was up in Cairns last week selling wine, and we did 3 sales on that Saturday while my team were doing open homes. So as a team, we can function really well. And for me, I built the business out of the ability of wanting to be able to have flexibility in travel and time, which worked really well for working mums who, once again, they need that flexibility when daycare calls up and the kid's sick or little Tommy's got a headache. Every boss dreads that call. It's like the secretary rocks up in the morning and goes, look, I've dropped the kids off to daycare, but they got a runny nose. I'm expecting a phone call in about 2 hours saying, come pick them up, but I'll get what I can get done in the meantime.
I think everybody who employs who's head staff can relate to that.
Yep. And you can either complain about it or hire people who don't have kids, or you can roll with it and embrace it. And the one thing I've found is that those mums are incredibly resourceful.
Unfortunately, a lot of employers wouldn't let them return back to the workforce, or they just wouldn't be adaptable for what they needed.
So you found just by like embracing working mums that you were able just to work everything around that and it just worked for your real estate?
Well, it wasn't even intentional. It's just that I had incredibly great staff that went off and had kids. And I'm like, well, I don't want to lose you. And we actually worked out they could still do a fair bit even from home anyway. So even during their pregnancy and during maternity leave, they were still able to do stuff for me anyway. So let's not like lose too much talent and time. And I remember being at another company where they actually wouldn't employ people of a certain age because like they had lost too many staff to babies.
Yeah.
And culturally that made the office full of older, crankier people, I found. whereas my office, like we can still have young, fun people in there, and they know that from an employer side as well, they can be honest with me if they want to have kids or start a family. It's not a taboo thing that they need to hide from me and fear that they're going to be penalised or lose their opportunities or lose their job.
Yeah.
If anything, it's quite the opposite. They know that they've actually got a home. And it's actually built some loyalty amongst our team. And as I said, we've got a sales team where nearly everyone in that office has been either a friend or a work colleague of mine for the last decade.
I would say they have taken that into account when you won these awards too, because by having that loyalty with your team there, they know that they can live life and also have that good balance with work as well.
Yeah, well, and also it allows a lot of trust as well, because when you've worked with someone for 7 years, I don't need to micromanage them.
Yeah.
I can say, hey, Georgia, can you look after this? I know that the moment I've allocated a task to her and it's on her desk, I don't really have to check in. I know that it will be done to the standard that I expect. To be honest, it's usually done at a standard a lot better than what I would have done myself.
Yeah.
They're all much better at things than what I am. And I think it's really important to try and hire people that are better than you, because if they're not better than you, well, then you can't get away. All your clients want you.
It's true. Yeah. I was reading something on Facebook today, and somebody was complaining, saying, oh, when I was working for somebody else, I thought I want to have my own business so I can set it up the way that I want to set it up. But now that I have my own business, none of my team will listen to me. And when I go away, nobody does the work that's supposed to be done. And I just put a comment there and just said, you know what, you get what you tolerate. If that's the standard you set, then that's the standard they're going to follow. And they were talking about, oh, I'm thinking of just selling the business and walking away. I'm going, why would you sell the business if it's going out? Why not just get rid of the people who aren't performing, or train them to perform? Maybe they don't know how to perform when you're not there, because you're so used to micromanaging everything. That when you're not there, they're like, what do we do? We can't make a decision because we've never been able to. So it's either retrain them, and if they won't change, let them go. And maybe you better just have the business with less staff.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, no business is perfect. Like, we've had our challenges over the years of growth, and like we've had the odd person that just culturally didn't fit, and the team filters it out pretty quickly. And like I said, if they're not part of that fit and they do need to be micromanaged, it's not a bad thing if people move on either. And I've had agents in my business that have grown and they outgrew the business and opened their own agency. Totally fine. We're still friends today, and they sell in a different area, so they're not really competing with me anyway.
Yeah.
But it's funny because she sits there and she's running her own business now, and she's, oh my God, was I like this? And I'm like, yeah, welcome. And it's funny because now, like, I've got a colleague that actually understands what I've been through.
Yeah.
And she's going through all the teething problems of starting her own business and training staff and all that as well. And yeah, sometimes it's just good to bounce off people in the same boat.
I remember reading somewhere once, and somebody had said, yeah, I used to think my boss was stupid. So instead of working with someone stupid, I decided to work for myself, and now I work for a lunatic. So and it is, because
very much so.
I suppose it's one of the, look, I've never really had a podiatry job working for somebody else. I almost did, and then I just decided to work for myself. It was just the way that it worked out. But yeah, I'm sure, I know I've had people that work with me who we haven't got along, and they left, and some of them have left the profession because it just, podiatry wasn't for them.
Yep.
I've had others that have worked for me and gone and done their own thing, and some have done extremely well, and some haven't done so well. And it's just, to me, I think it depends how much work, time and effort you put into it, and always being willing to that you don't know everything. And
absolutely.
You're always going to be on this path of learning. That's why when I bumped into you at the Wine Awards, what really got me thinking about I'd love to have you on as a guest was, we're talking about the wine first, and then you mentioned that you have some holiday accommodation as well in the vineyards that people can stay at. And we went, oh, so you're not just a winery. You go, no, you can actually stay at our winery. And was it 6 people can stay in a 3-bedroom place in Barossa?
Yes. Yep. So the house I'm sitting at right now, so this vineyard view behind me, that you can stay at our vineyard. And for anyone that wants to come down here and experience the Barossa, we can essentially curate an experience for them, because I'm just a small guy, so I don't have a cellar door and I don't have all the big flashy tasting rooms and all that. But I do know a lot of the people down here. I know a lot of the locals.
Yeah.
And what we do is we can put you in touch with the people that you need to see and the experiences you need to do. And you can essentially live the life of being in a private 10-acre vineyard surrounded by vines, no neighbours, and it's just a great peaceful reset. And then we've also got another accommodation in Queensland as well, where that was my first vineyard, which I planted by hand. And that was actually, my dream was to own a vineyard. And I thought, well, this little 1-acre block in West Queensland there would satisfy my goal of having a vineyard and having a little bit of wine and a bit of a hobby. And then 2 years later, this opportunity came up, And when we talk about doing things impulsively, like this was literally an overnight decision. I had an opportunity and I said yes, and I purchased it. And it's funny because I purchased it so quickly, 3 people who would have purchased it missed out. They didn't even get a look in on it
because I
was so decisive. Yep. And I had 3 people offer to buy the vineyard off me after they found out that I'd purchased it. And I'm like, no.
So you snooze, you lose.
And sometimes there's a cost of buying something and sometimes the cost of missing out on something. And I've been on the end of both. And I don't like living a life of regrets and missing stuff out. And I think that's probably why I make decisions a little bit more decisively now. I was just going to make the point, as spontaneous as I am, and it's not reckless, and I always make sure you've got an exit strategy as well. So when you start a business, you don't start a business and expect it to continue forever. Like there will be a day where you go, I'm going to hang up the boots, or you might get sick of it, or you might sell. So what's your exit strategy? What are you going to do? I can't keep selling real estate forever, but who knows? One of my staff might want to take over the business, or I might sell it, or I might chop it up into bits. Who knows? And same with the vineyard, buying the vineyard. Okay, if making wine is not my thing and I can't do it and it doesn't work out, then what's my exit strategy? Will I sell the vineyard? I've got fruit contracts, so I can sell the grapes. I've got other options there. So I went into it the plan of this is my dream, this is my forever home, and I'd love to retire here. But life changes, and you just don't know what occurs around the corner. And I went to uni and I thought I'd be an architect for all my life, and then the GSC happened and I was unemployed. So real estate came around just as a complete freak opportunity, really.
Yeah, I think everyone's got to be aware, like you said, when we're talking about calculated risk, when I set Mackay up, we took a certain amount of money, put it into a bank account. We went down there, we found a location. I said, this is all I'm prepared to invest into this. If it fails. It was one reason having it 800 kilometers away, because no one would have known about it either in Cairns.
Yep.
But so we set it up and it went through the roof. It just worked. So we went, okay, we know that we're onto something here. And then that helped us decide whether we're going to do other things. But even when it came to selling my Cairns clinic, I knew I was never going to have it forever. So when the opportunity came up to sell it, I went, now is the time to sell. I'm going to move on and start doing something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes just because something doesn't work out doesn't mean it won't work again, or something like you can learn some lessons from that as well. So I had one agent who worked for me. They really wanted to open their own office. So they kept our brand and opened an extension of our brand in another location. I could never really see the value in having a second office because as a business owner, I just saw that as double overheads and all those things that go with the actual running of the business. But I'd never had a problem with the second location. But anyway, we tried that and that didn't work out, but we learned a lot of great lessons. But now we have 3 locations. So our base is on the Sunshine Coast, but we cover Hervey Bay, Fraser Coast and North Brisbane. Okay. So now I have agents in remote locations who service those areas. Now we don't have physical offices, but we can support because of our business being able to be set up remotely and working for mums working from home. It also lends itself to growing, so we can sell other regions of Queensland. So essentially we can sell a property anywhere in Queensland. All we need is one set of boots on the ground in the local area to basically unlock a door and show a buyer through when they want to look at it. But we can handle the rest of it digitally through Zoom, online, videos, emails. So the possibilities are quite exciting, really.
Well, I just think it's interesting. You can learn from your failures just as much. Even when I had the clinic in Cairns, Mackay went great. Had some other ones went fantastic. Except one north of Cairns in Smithfield, which is 25, 30 minutes away, slightly different market. It went really well. But what I found, having the 2 locations that were quite close to each other, they were a drain on the main clinic. Whenever someone was sick or someone went on holidays, someone from Cairns was going to Smithfield, and it got to a point where it went, I'm not enjoying this anymore. So we closed the Smithfield one down. By the time we did everything, it cost me a bit of money to get out of a lease in a shopping centre. And I lost a little bit doing that, but I learned a really good lesson from it as well. But once I focused back on my Cairns clinic, almost within 12 months, everything jumped by about 30 or 40%. So what I'd lost in the initial stages of getting out, I made back within 6 months easily.
Absolutely. And that's what we've done with our business as well. So we can expand into other regions quite easily, but we'll keep certain services centralized. So there's no need for the duplication of everything in a second office.
Yeah. So you had the real estate, that's all gone great. You decided your dream was to always have a vineyard. So you bought, just happened to come with a house on it. And then you decided to renovate. They must have renovated them, because I went and checked them out online, and they both look beautiful. The one in Barossa, one, was it Moffatdale or?
Yeah, Moffatdale. Yep.
Yeah.
So the Moffatdale one was built brand new. So
it looks
I built
fantastic.
That. Yeah. So that one was a bit of a passion project.
Yeah, it looks like it was architecturally designed too.
Funny that.
Funny that. I looked at it and said, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so that one, like I said, that was always my little weekend retreat getaway project. That was the first vineyard, and that was the first passion project.
Yeah.
This one, the one in Barossa, came about purely just shopping online, looking on realestate.com one night, and I was actually looking at apartments in Brisbane. I thought, this is a joke. Like, I can't believe how expensive apartments are. And I was looking for a part of the market that hadn't quite boomed yet. And I had something pop up on my Facebook saying Adelaide retro houses or something. And it was like a little house down at Victor Harbour for $300,000. I know Victor Harbour, I know Adelaide quite well, but I go to Barossa 3 times a year, so I should look at that.
Yeah.
Jumped online. I had a fair idea of what I was wanting. So I wasn't just, this came up and yes, it was the perfect dream home, whatever, but I knew what I wanted and I knew what areas I wanted. And I basically approached a real estate agent that had a house 3 doors up the road and said, I'm looking for something like this, but I want something that I can Airbnb. So I want the house to be a bit nicer. I want 3 varietals of grapes at a minimum.
Yeah.
And I'd ideally like something on about 10 acres. And he replied back saying, I actually have the property 2 doors down from this one. It's got a nicer house. Here's the photos of it inside, and it has 3 varietals of grapes on it. So he sent me the photos, and he said there's currently tenants in the property. The tenants have got it looking like tenants do. It didn't look as great as what the real estate agent would hope, but I can see past all that. And I just said, yep, that's perfect. Here's the deposit. I'll fly down tomorrow and buy it.
So did you always know when you bought the vineyard, you always knew you were going to have grapes there? Did you already have a seller lined up to buy the grapes?
No, I didn't actually. So I bought the property on the basis that I probably should have researched how much it was going to cost to make wine.
Yeah.
I bought it blindly on the faith of, 10 acres, I can make a bit of wine for myself out of that.
Yeah.
And I'll try and sell it. That's what I thought.
So you were going to just try and make it yourself somehow?
I was just
figure it out?
Yeah, I was just going to make wine from scratch and figure it out. And if I could sell some, I'd sell some.
Yeah.
And then about 3 days before the property changed hands and it settled, I had a phone call from a local winemaker, and he said, hey, Mark, I heard that you bought the vineyard at Saleyards Road. Just wondering what you're planning on doing with the grapes. I'm like, well, I was actually looking to make my own wine, and I'm actually looking for contract winemakers to make the wine for me. And he goes, well, that vineyard's actually integral to one of our flagship wines, and I'd like to keep buying the grapes if possible. And I'm like, well, I know your wine because I buy it. I've been a regular customer for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'd hate to be the death of that wine. So, yes, I'll continue selling the grapes to you, but can you make a little side batch of wine for me? And so he said, if that's what I've got to do to keep the fruit, then, yeah, I can do that.
And when you say a side batch, how many bottles are you actually making for yourself? Or so I'll let people know if they want to go and check it, it's mcgillwines.com.au.
Yes. So I'm only making, we had a really bumper vintage that vintage. So I made 1,500 bottles of wine of the Nero, 1,000 bottles of wine of the Shiraz, 1,500 of the Cabernet, and then we made a blend. So all up we had about 4,000 or 5,000 bottles of wine.
Yeah, well, you're going to be about 6 less Nero ones by the end of this week. And plus, I'll tell everyone too, your wine comes in litre bottles.
Yes. So
none of that 750 ml rubbish.
No, point of difference. Queenslanders do things bigger and better.
Yeah, and I will point out to everyone, your wines were really nice. And I'll put links in the show notes of people. If you're driving your car at the moment, don't try and write anything down. Go to the show notes, podiatrylegends.com, and click on this episode, which is going to be episode 374. And I will have all the links there to the Airbnb, or the class Airbnbs.
Yep. Yeah. The accommodation and the wine's all on the one website, so you can book it all.
Yeah, so I'll have links to the wine, the accommodation, and we've already there's a group of 3 of us already who are already trying to plan it when we're going to do the Barossa one next year.
Yeah, cool.
My wife and I were looking at the Sunshine Coast one as well, thinking, yeah, we're going to do that as well, because both places look fantastic. I tell everyone, go and check out the website. So if you go to mcgillwines.com.au, everything's basically on that website.
Yep, everything's there. So, yep, you can order the wines, you can order a discount, you can order in bulk as well, so you get bulk discount, because for us it's more economical to package in 6s because that's how they're already boxed.
Yeah.
Whereas if you buy in less than 6, we've got to pay someone to unbox it and rebox it.
Okay, that's how it works. Yeah, because I was looking at the price, because I got the slip here in front of me that I got from the show, and I did see it. So when I was on the website, I'll ask a question. There's a 2023 vintage and there's a 2024 vintage for the Nero.
Correct.
Which one are you saying we're buying at the moment?
Both are good.
Both are good.
So the 23 is probably at the wine tasting day.
Yeah.
The 23 is the one that is a bit more savoury. It goes with food a bit better. The 24 is a lot lighter in alcohol. It's a lot fresher in fruit, and it's probably more, the term I'd say is smashable. So that's the one. That's the one that you just drink and just have a good time. The 23's got a little bit more structure for food. It was a really good response we had at the show. We had a lot of people there.
Yeah, and I've told a few people from the Wine Awards that I was having you on the podcast, and they'll go, "Oh, this is fantastic! Looking forward to actually listening to it." So I think it'll be a popular episode, because a lot of people I know in Cairns who were at that Wine Awards, and a lot of them had tried your wines. So I think they'll be interested to hear a bit of the backstory as well.
Well, yeah, like I said, I want to try and, with all of our business, we try and reward the good habits we want people. So I want to reward people who buy more wine by making it cheaper for them. So yeah, the more wine they buy, the better the deal they get.
And it's one of the things too, I find with wine, like I'm not a wine connoisseur, but I know when I like a wine, and my wife's the same. Once we find a wine that we like, we tend to just keep reordering the same stuff. We don't.
And a lot of people are like that, but that's what I really love about those things like the Wine Awards, because that is your chance and your exposure to trying new stuff. I love trying all new wines and new styles, and my rule at restaurants is order what I can't pronounce.
When I find a wine I like, I don't mind ordering 6 or 12 of just that wine. That one bottle that I like, let's keep that one aside, because we know we're always going to like it.
Absolutely.
But not too long ago, I ordered a carton. It was just a mixed bag. It was a lucky dip on what you were going to get. And I think out of the 12, 8 I really enjoyed, and 4 I was like, oh, that was a bit rough. Still drank it. Yeah.
Well, I think this is probably a bit of a plug for some of the wine producers down here, and especially up in Cairns as well. You've got lots of agriculture up there. The little guys are working hard, and they really appreciate the support of people like yourself. We're not selling to the Dan Murphys and the big multinationals. Our wine is handmade. I can literally tell you which row goes into which bottle, and I can tell you every step of the journey and what's happened to that wine, every step of the way, from pruning to bottling to crushing right through to drinking. I can take you on that whole journey, and because of that, we know what's in the wine. You're getting something that's just much better quality for the same price as what you're probably spending at Dan's anyway.
Yeah.
But you're also helping out a lot of these local guys here. That's what keeps them afloat. It's the loyal customers, and it makes it worthwhile, because your big multinationals, especially for agriculture, they're taking all the profit out of agriculture for the farmers. They're actually left with nothing. My water bill here is probably more than my bottling costs with the drought this year.
Yeah.
So we lost a third of our crop to just evaporation. So we've got great quality grapes and great quality wine, but just because of the heat, we just lost a third of it. Now, it still costs the same to mow the lawns, to pick the grapes, to do all the work that needs to be done, but we just had 1/3 less of it to sell.
Yeah, and that was what I picked up when we were talking in Cairns, was I actually thought you were a great ambassador for the area of Barossa, one thing, but for also the small wine growers, because you actually said that when because some people will go, this is our wine, this is the only wine you should drink. But you were saying, no, try and support all the smaller wineries. If you've had their wine before and you like wine, is keep supporting their wines, not always just the wine from the big companies. So I thought that was good to hear that you're actually supporting and looking after each other. And you said if you stay at the Airbnb in Barossa, you can pinpoint which wineries to go and check out, and where to go tastings. I think it's fantastic.
Well, I can guarantee they'll give you a much better experience than some of the big multinationals.
Yeah,
you'll get a much better experience. You'll get wine that's probably twice the quality. I just couldn't believe how many people at the Wine Awards said, because all of my wines are only red, I had a lot of people coming up going, do you have any white wines? I said, no. And they said, we only drink white wines. I said, just give this a try.
That was the Nero?
And that was the Nero. And we had so many people who were only white wine drinkers converted to red wine because they've never had properly well-made, well-crafted red wines before.
So Mark, on that note, like I said to everyone listening to this, I'll have all the links in the show notes.
Yep.
Is there anything you want to say to finish up on before we wrap up?
No, just thank you very much for the opportunity. It was just such a great experience to go up to Cairns. And like I said, it was just, you just never know what you're going to do, who you're going to meet, and where things lead to. So I'm just really excited to be part of this podcast as part of the opportunity, and love to see where things come from and where businesses go from here. Like, happy to always come on another time if you want to talk about anything. And
yeah, no, that'd be fantastic. I love doing follow-up with people a year or 2 years later, especially with what's happening with your wine or what happens with the Airbnbs. But I'm sure I don't know what you're going to do next. Who knows what you're going to do? But that's why I always say to people, on my back wall here, I have this quote that says, your next connection can be the one that changes your life.
Absolutely.
And I'm a big believer in connecting with people. That's why I was talking to you about the Wine Awards. I just love chatting with people. Well, I loved your story, wanted to get you on here, but it's one of those things, you never know who you know that I know, or where it's going to end up going. So this has been fantastic.
No, it's been fantastic. And yeah, we really appreciate your support as well. So thank you very much for inviting us on the show. And we look forward to welcoming you to the Barossa.
Oh, yeah. Bring it on.
Sounds good.
Well, hope you enjoyed listening to Mark McGill today. And I'm so happy we crossed paths at the Cairns Wine Awards. And next year in 2026, I'm thinking about actually doing an event around that same time. So stay tuned for that. But before I wrap up, I just want to share 3 points that I think are worth highlighting again. And the first one is Mark McGill takes action. Then he works out the details. So I think it's really important to action breeds opportunity, and waiting too long sometimes can kill momentum. So just be aware of that. It's take action. You can sort out the details later, and you can also then decide whether you want to continue on down that path or basically change paths. The next point I wanted to share was just when he was talking about keeping services in-house to improve efficiency. And you have a look at how your business, your podiatry business runs now, other things that you're outsourcing that maybe you could bring in-house and would speed up the whole process, look after your patients and clients and customers a lot better. I mentioned that we brought in our own milling machine so we can make our orthotics faster and exactly the way that we want it. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody should be doing that, but what can you do in-house to speed up processes? And the third point I just wanted to mention was when he said he rewards repeat clients instead of just offering new deals to new ones. I think it's really important to look at your existing database and the people that come back on a regular basis and making sure you do whatever you can to look after them. I know it's important to always be bringing new people into your business, but don't offer new people these better deals than you're offering to the people who've been spending money with you for a long period of time. So anyway, I hope you got something from those 3 points. I hope you really enjoyed this episode with Mark McGill. And if you have any questions about this podcast, please reach out to me. You can send me an email, tyson@podiatrylegends.com. Don't forget to go and visit the website, podiatrylegends.com. Okay, that's it from me this week. Look after yourself, look after your family, and I'll talk to you again next week. Bye for now.